What if the thing you've been chasing your whole life was built to never satisfy you?
Have you ever finally gotten the thing you wanted and felt nothing? Not sadness, not disappointment, just a strange, quiet flatness where the fireworks were supposed to be. Maybe it was the job, the relationship, the apartment with the view you swore would fix everything. You got there. You stood exactly where you spent years sprinting toward. And the feeling you were chasing had already packed up and left, 3 steps ahead of you, like it always is. If that has ever happened to you, hear this clearly. You are not broken. You are not ungrateful. You are not doing life wrong. You've been playing a game that was rigged before you even knew the rules. And by the end of this video, you're going to see exactly how it's rigged, and more importantly, what to do instead. Here's what nobody tells you about happiness. It was never built to be a destination. It's a byproduct. And the second you start chasing it directly, it does something almost cruel. It runs. Stick with me, because once you see the mechanism behind this, you can't unsee it, and your entire relationship with wanting things is about to change. Chapter 1, the treadmill you can't feel moving. Here's a question worth sitting with for a second. Why does the raise stop feeling exciting after about 3 weeks? Psychologists have a name for what's happening to you. It's called the hedonic treadmill. Picture an actual treadmill. You're walking, sometimes running, sweating, working hard, and the scenery never changes. You're putting in real effort and staying in exactly the same place. That's what happens to your baseline happiness every single time you chase an external win. You land the job. For a few weeks, life feels brighter, lighter, different. Then your brain quietly resets, like a thermostat clicking back to room temperature the moment you stop watching it. And suddenly you're already eyeing the next promotion, the next milestone, the next thing that will finally make you feel settled. Spoiler, it won't. Here's the part that actually matters, though. This isn't a flaw in you. It's not weakness. It's not greed. It's biology doing exactly the job it was built for. Think about your ancient ancestors for a second. If early humans felt permanently satisfied the moment they found food or shelter, they would have stopped searching. They would have stopped striving entirely. And in a world of scarcity and constant threat, standing still could get you killed. So evolution installed a quiet, permanent whisper in your head. Good, but not enough. Keep moving. That whisper kept your ancestors alive. The problem is, it's still running in your head, in a world that no longer requires constant survival mode striving. The engine that once kept humans alive is now just keeping you tired. You didn't choose this setting. You inherited it, which means the guilt you've been quietly carrying about never feeling satisfied was never yours to carry in the first place. But knowing the treadmill exists doesn't turn it off. It just means you finally know what you're standing on. And that's exactly where this gets interesting, because the treadmill has a twin, and its twin is even sneakier. Chapter 2, the lottery winner and the accident survivor. Researchers once studied 2 groups of people who should have been living in completely different emotional universes. Lottery winners and survivors of life-altering accidents. One group you'd assume was floating, the other devastated. But when researchers checked back in roughly a year later, something strange had happened. The lottery winners weren't dramatically happier than before their windfall, and the accident survivors, while still facing very real hardship, had climbed back to a sense of well-being far closer to where they started than anyone predicted. Both groups drifted back toward the same emotional home base. Not because the events didn't matter. They mattered enormously, in the moment, but because the mind has a gravitational pull back to its own default setting, almost no matter what happens to it externally. Let that sink in for a second, because it's honestly humbling. The external thing you're currently pinning your happiness on right now, the job offer, the relationship, the number in your account, carries far less long-term emotional weight than it feels like it does today. Your brain is lying to you about how much that thing will matter in a year. It's not malicious. It's just doing what it's always done. So if chasing the wind doesn't actually move the needle long-term, what does? That's the real question. And the answer starts with understanding a trap that's even more direct than the treadmill. Chapter 3, the person at the party who's trying too hard. You've met this person. Maybe you've been this person, desperately trying to be liked, forced laughter a half-second too loud, every sentence quietly angling for approval. It's uncomfortable to watch, and somehow it almost never works the way they're hoping. Now picture someone else in that same room, not trying at all, just being themselves, genuinely curious about the people around them, laughing at things that actually strike them as funny. People are drawn to that person without fully understanding why. That contrast has a name. Psychologists call it the paradox of hedonism. The more directly you chase happiness as a goal, the more it slips away from you. It's the same reason trying too hard to fall asleep keeps you wide awake at 2 a.m. The same reason staring too intensely at someone while trying to look confident makes you feel more awkward, not less. Direct pursuit creates tension, and tension is the natural enemy of the exact thing you're chasing. So here's the shift, and I want you to actually sit with this one. Stop asking, how do I become happy? Start asking a completely different question. What would make my life meaningful, even if it never made me happy at all? I know, it sounds backwards. Stay with me anyway, because this is where everything starts to change. Chapter 4, The Parent at 3 in the Morning. Picture a parent up at 3 a.m. with a crying newborn. In that exact moment, are they happy? Almost certainly not. They're exhausted, maybe even a little resentful. Ask them a year later about that season of life, though, and most will tell you it was one of the most meaningful chapters they've ever lived. Happiness is a mood. Meaning is a structure. Moods come and go like weather. Structures hold you up during the storm. Here's the image I want stuck in your head from now on. Happiness is sunlight, and meaning is the foundation of a house. Sunlight feels incredible when it's out. It warms you, lifts you, makes everything look a little more beautiful. But nobody builds a house out of sunlight. You build a house out of a foundation, something solid enough to hold weight even when the sky turns gray. The people who seem most at peace in life aren't the ones who guaranteed themselves endless sunshine. They're the ones who built a foundation strong enough to still be standing on the cloudy days. That's the identity shift underneath this entire video. Stop asking to feel good. Start asking to live well. Weirdly, feeling good becomes more frequent as a side effect of that shift, not the goal of it. But there's a saboteur hiding in this whole process, one that quietly wrecks people's progress before they even notice it's happening, and it's probably running in the background of your phone right now. Chapter 5, The Math That Was Never Fair. Even when your life is genuinely good, your brain doesn't measure your life against your life. It measures your life against everyone else's highlight reel. Someone's vacation photos, someone's promotion post, someone's seemingly perfect relationship. You end up chasing a version of happiness that was never actually about you. It was about catching up to a moving target built entirely out of other people's curated moments. Here's the uncomfortable part. You know every messy, uncertain, boring detail of your own life. You know none of theirs. Of course the math feels unfair. It was rigged from the start. And there's a second, quieter layer underneath that one. Part of why comparison stings so much isn't really about them at all. It's about the gap between who you are right now and who you imagined you'd be by now. The other person is just the screen you're projecting that gap onto. Which means chasing their version of happiness was never going to close your gap. It was never actually about them to begin with. So how do you actually break the cycle? Not with a mindset poster. With one small, specific habit you can try literally tonight. Chapter 6, The 3 Questions That Rewire Your Attention. Tonight, instead of asking yourself, was today good enough? Ask 3 different questions. What did I notice today that I would have missed if I was distracted? Who did I genuinely connect with, even briefly? What did I do that felt like it mattered, regardless of outcome? Notice something. None of those questions ask, was I happy? They redirect your attention toward the actual texture of being alive, noticing, connecting, mattering. And that redirection is often exactly what produces the emotional lift people were chasing the whole time. Here's why this works. Your attention is one of the only truly finite resources you have. Wherever you point it, your emotional experience follows. Point it at evidence that your life isn't good enough yet, and you will always find some. There's an endless supply of not yet, if that's what you're hunting for. Point that same attention at what's already working, already meaningful, already quietly good, and you'll find an endless supply of that instead. Think about the last time you seriously considered buying a car. Suddenly you started noticing that exact model everywhere. On the highway, in parking lots, in your neighbor's driveway. Nothing about the world changed. Your attention just learned what to look for, and reality rearranged itself around the new filter. Your emotional life runs on the same wiring. Train your attention to search for proof you're falling behind, and you'll find that proof everywhere, every single day. Train it to notice small moments of meaning and quiet competence, and those start appearing everywhere too. Not because life changed, because your filter did. There's one last piece to this puzzle though, and it might be the most important one in the entire video, because it explains why even people who made it still feel restless. Chapter 7. Why the finish line keeps moving. We tend to assume that once we finally arrive somewhere, once we hit the goal, land the role, reach the milestone, we'll stop needing to chase anything at all. We picture arrival as a kind of permanent rest. Ask anyone who has actually reached a goal they spent years pursuing, though, and most will tell you something surprising. The relief lasts a few days, sometimes a few weeks, and then, almost without noticing, a new target quietly slides into its place. Not because they're ungrateful, because the striving itself had become part of their identity, and identities don't like standing still. This is why some of the most outwardly successful people you've ever heard of still describe a restlessness they can't fully explain. It's not that success failed them, it's that they expected success to deliver something it was never built to deliver. A permanent, finished feeling of enough. There is no finish line where enough is quietly waiting for you. Enough isn't a place you arrive at. It's a decision you make, over and over, in the middle of an unfinished life. That might sound unsettling at first. If there's no finish line, what's even the point of striving? But flip it around, and it becomes something else entirely. Liberating. If enough was never going to arrive on its own, you don't have to wait for the mountain, the raise, the relationship, or the milestone to give you permission to feel it. You can decide, right now, in this unfinished, imperfect, in-progress life, that this counts, that you're allowed to exhale now, not later. Chapter 8. Striving from fullness, not from lack. This doesn't mean you stop growing. It doesn't mean you stop wanting more. Ambition and peace aren't actually enemies, even though most of us were quietly taught to treat them that way. You can want a bigger future and still refuse to hold your present hostage until you get it. You can keep climbing the mountain without needing the summit to validate the climb. Here's the difference that changes everything. Striving from lack says, I am not enough until I get there. Striving from fullness says, I am already enough, and I still choose to grow. Same effort, same ambition, completely different emotional experience carrying you through it. And to be clear, this isn't about forcing gratitude. It isn't about pretending hard things don't hurt, or smiling through pain and calling it wisdom. Chasing forced positivity is just the treadmill wearing a nicer outfit. It's still a treadmill. What we're talking about is quieter than that, more honest, loosening your grip on the demand that life feel a certain way right now, so life actually has room to reach you. Because here's the real cost of holding on too tightly. The more you insist you need to feel happy right now, the more you turn every ordinary moment into a performance review. Am I happy enough yet? Is this good enough yet? Should I feel more than this? Let go of the grading. Let the moment just be what it is. There's an old idea, one that shows up again and again across very different traditions of thought, and it might be the single most useful image in this entire video. Happiness is like a shadow. Chase it, and it moves at exactly the same speed you do, forever staying out of reach. But turn around and walk toward something else entirely, toward meaning, toward connection, toward the work that actually matters to you, and the shadow follows quietly, without you ever needing to look back for it. You were never supposed to chase the shadow. You were only ever supposed to walk. And maybe that's the most freeing part of everything we've covered today. You don't need a perfect plan to feel okay. You don't need to solve your entire life before you're allowed one moment of peace. You just need to stop treating peace like something you have to earn on the other side of an invisible finish line. That finish line was always going to keep moving. That was the trick the whole time. The day you stop chasing happiness as a destination is the day you stop treating your own life like an unfinished errand. You stop postponing yourself for some future version of arrived. You start noticing that meaning, connection, and quiet satisfaction were available the entire time, not waiting at the summit, but scattered across the whole climb. You don't need to run faster on the treadmill. You need to step off it and actually look around. So maybe the real question was never, how do I become happy? Maybe it was always this: what would it feel like to stop waiting for permission to feel okay? You already have that permission. You always did.